And he just said, I'm sorry that first coffee of the cold season. Anyway, welcome to this video that I don't think I'm quite mentally prepared to record, but it needs to be done. And yeah. So anyway, when this goes up, it will be October 15th, which Ronald Reagan proclaimed as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day. In fact, all of October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, but it gets highly overshadowed by breast cancer awareness as well. So this is my stillbirth story. I'm going to try not to make it too super long if I can. I just want to get it out there. I know that I've talked about my daughter on this channel the last couple of years. I've done things in August for her birthday, and yeah. So I'm just going to tell the whole story all at once instead of just the bits and pieces that have been, included in past videos. For starters, Jason and I got married 22 years ago in 1998, and probably a few months after that we attempted to get pregnant. I was 28 at the time and he was younger, but we both had kids already, so it wasn't like we were, just some young dumb couple trying to get pregnant right away for no reason. We just knew that we wanted to have one child together to bring our children, our family together. At the time, my boys were already 6 and 8, I believe, or 6 and 9, and his son was 4. So, I mean, that's a pretty good gap for bringing in a baby. And the first 6 months or so didn't really go as planned. I wasn't doing any actual trying to conceive methods. I didn't know of anything at the time. We did go see a doctor the following summer who told us about how to keep a calendar, keep track of my cycle, blah, 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 all the, kind of low-end starting points of trying to conceive. This would have been the summer of 99. Well, spring of 99, I guess, because that's when he went into the Air Force in April. And we did get pregnant then. We had our first miscarriage on Mother's Day weekend while he was in basic training. So that was tough news to deliver over the phone. No cell phones at the time, so I hadn't heard from him in over 2 weeks, probably close to 3 weeks. And he had to buy a little AT&T phone card with like 60 minutes on it and then stand in line at a payphone behind everybody else who wanted to talk to their moms, wives, what have you. Anyway, I'm making this way longer than it needed to be and going way too far back. Anyway, so fast forward to January 2001. We still hadn't gotten pregnant. We got stationed in Germany, and after about a year of being there, found out that TRICARE covers almost everything preliminary for trying to get pregnant up to IVF. So we were able to see a specialist for 2 years. We did 6 different inseminations, I believe, IUIs they call them. The first 2, I think, were just done with timing, just timing it right. The second 2 were done with, is it Clomid? Whichever one is the pill that people were taking in the around the 90s and found out that you would just like all of a sudden have like 6 babies all at once, even though you only took it, you know. Anyway, so we did those 2 rounds with Clomid, which didn't do anything. And then we did the last 2 rounds with HCG shots, with hormone shots. The first one didn't do anything, and then the 6th one, while it didn't, well, either the 5th or the 6th one did produce a low beta number, like a 14, and he told me that wasn't anything um, that it wouldn't really go anywhere, and that was too low to be viable. But the 6th round, we also used a, I don't remember what it's called, but he timed my ovulation. It was a shot he gave me in my belly to make sure that within 24 hours and then I came back and we did the IUI. Anyway, I count that as my 2nd miscarriage because we knew that there was something there. And I've always wondered, I'll say as I get later in the story, I always wonder if progesterone wouldn't have done anything. At the time, I didn't know anything about it. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my words. I don't know how much of this I'm gonna like chop up or whatever. Anyway, so we get back to the States in January 2005. And we tried on our own for, I guess, a couple more years. I kept taking my temperature and, watching ovulation and timing, when we would have sex and this and that and the other. Which in October, I think, of 2007, I was late. Actually, to be fair, throughout these 7 years or so, there were at least 8 or 10 times where I would be anywhere from 2 to 3 days to 10 or 12 days late, and then all of a sudden I would start. Those were probably all chemical pregnancies. So yeah. Anyway, in October, I went to see the doctor on base. I told her I did not have a positive pregnancy test, and that's what's weird too. Through all these years, I would take tests when I was late, and they would never come up positive. Not even a faint positive. So I would never be aware or alerted to the fact that I might be pregnant. So I just thought my body was being weird. Anyway, I told her that I wasn't having a positive pregnancy urine test, but I asked her if I could have a beta test because I know those are more accurate. And she said no. And I told her that we'd been trying to get pregnant now for about 7 years and that I knew my body. And I think it was about 2 weeks late at this point too. And then I asked her if she could give me some progesterone because I'd read on some forums, which I had joined a few years prior, that if in fact the egg had implanted or was having trouble implanting, to take progesterone. Anyway, and she said no again. She said even if I had a positive beta test, one thing she doesn't do is write prescriptions for progesterone. And at this point, it was the GYN. It was the gynecologist, not just the regular family doctor. So I went home and found out that you could order medicine online from either Canada or the UK. And I think I ordered a package of progesterone, a box from the UK. It took about 2 weeks to get here, and by that time I had already started again. So I count that as no, I don't know. I think that was a chemical pregnancy. I mean, I would consider that a chemical as well. Because I didn't have, anyway. So yeah, and then a month later in December, right before Christmas, I started having really bad cramps. I also get these weird things in the middle of the month. The German word for them is called Mittelschmerz, which is having pain, like cramps, in the middle of the month, in the middle of your cycle, rather than just when you're, on your period. And some of them can be chalked up to implantation cramps. Sorry, I noticed my coffee sitting over here getting cold. So, um, in December, I had these really horrible, painful cramps for about 4 or 5 days in a row. I did the same thing in October for 3 mornings in a row. Usually, when I get them, it's just one morning. They last an hour or so, and I'm not talking about like period cramps. These are like debilitating, like I feel like I'm in labor type cramps, and they come in waves. I can't move. I can't hardly breathe. So yeah. Anyway, and then the January rolls around, and at one point I'm walking through Walmart with one of my kids, and noticed, counted on my fingers, that I was 17 days late, which is the latest I'd ever been. So I said, should I buy a pregnancy test, or will I just be fooling myself and it'll be negative again? Because I don't know how many tests I had taken at this time. And he said, go ahead, it's not going to hurt anything. Um, at least you'd know, blah, blah, blah. So I bought one, and again, it wasn't negative. It was one of those, it almost looked like an evaporation line, which got me really excited because I hadn't even seen any kind of line. So I showed it to Jason, and I had the box of progesterone that I had bought the month before, or in November, and I started taking them. It was either 1 or 2 pills a day. I think the minimum is like 2 weeks, just to make sure, at the very beginning. Um, I took them for probably about a week to 10 days, and then at that point, I think I tested again. I don't remember. This is all kind of blurry. But anyway, at some point, I did go to the doctor, did verify that we were pregnant, which resulted in a nice, long pregnancy. I was considered somewhat high risk. Not really even high risk. I was just what they call, what do they call that? Mature. I don't remember. There's a term for women that are old, like too old to be pregnant, or, because I was older, they kept an eye on my numbers and stuff. I was 39 at the time. I never went into like preeclampsia numbers with my blood pressure. In fact, most of the pregnancy was pretty normal. A little bit on the higher side of normal, but probably still within 10 points, I guess, when they would take my blood pressure. But on the week prior to when I went into labor, I think at that appointment it was a little bit higher, but still nothing dangerous. And then I went in on Tuesday, and it was probably the highest it had ever been, but it was like the last number. It could still be in the normal range. Maybe just a couple numbers over. At that point, my ankles were starting to swell just a little bit. I was still heavy at the time. I think I weigh 210 now. I was probably right at 200 because I lost about 15 pounds 10 pounds due to morning sickness, which is the least I've ever lost. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. And they said that the urine sample that they did was unclear as to whether or not the protein was too high, which I think is one of the markers for preeclampsia, is too much protein in your urine. And so they said that the sample might have been too small, or it might have been the wrong time of day, so they sent me home with a big bucket and said that they wanted me to do a 24-hour urine catch. and not to start till Wednesday morning. So I started Wednesday morning. We were playing World of Warcraft Wednesday night. We were doing some battlegrounds in Arathi Valley. That was fun. We watched the beginning of I think it was the opening of the Summer Olympics in China. And I kept having on and off contractions. So about midnight, 11 o'clock, I took one of my kids and we walked around Walmart for about an hour or so. And I was keeping times, but it was long. They were, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. And I was like, okay, this isn't really anything. Let's just go home, go to bed. And then woke up Thursday, and was still kind of all over the place. I did take the bottle back to the hospital. It was probably 10:30 in the morning. This would have been October 14th. I mean, October 14th. August 14th. And I dropped it off and then got on the elevator and went up to the 3rd floor. And at this time I did have a cell phone. Stood just outside the elevator staring at the vending machines there at the end of in labor and delivery, and called them and asked them if I could have a non-stress test. She said, we don't do them here, or we don't do them. And I told her that I had just come back, I had just come to the hospital, drop off the 24-hour urine catch, and that my feet were a little bit swollen, and, advanced maternal age, that's what they call it. And, I just was trying to be safe. I was trying to be on the safe side. So, I guess to an extent, this is one of my big what ifs. To an extent, I think I did everything I could have. Maybe I should have pushed harder. Maybe I should have just lied and said, I think I'm in labor, and gotten checked in. I don't know. But the nurse was a little offhanded, and she said, at that time my contractions were a little bit closer together, but they were still kind of all over the place. I think the longest gap was 15 or 17 minutes, but sometimes they could be as little as 4 or 5. And sorry, that's my phone. Facebook Messenger keeps going off. Anyway, basically the nurse just said, come back when they're 5 minutes apart or less. And I said, okay. And I think one of the reasons that I was so easy to agree with her dismissiveness is because I'd already had 3 kids at this point. I already knew I didn't want to be tied to a bed with an IV. I didn't want to not be able to get up and walk around. In fact, I had already wanted to go as natural as possible, as long as possible. I wanted to do it differently than when I was, 19. Not that I didn't want those pregnancies, but I was young and I was unprepared and I wasn't trying to have a baby. I hadn't just spent 10 years trying to have a baby. So anyway, I went home. Jason went to work. He was doing a training thing out in a field somewhere where he couldn't have access to, he wasn't supposed to have access to phones or anything like that. They had to be awake for 24 hours or something. I don't remember what the deal was, but anyway, I was contracting on my own, slowly making progression. I was packing a hospital bag, making sure I brought the baby book, breathing, stopping, walking, counting, all that good stuff. I took a warm bath around 3 to try to help with some of the painful contractions. Jason called me and asked me if he should come home for lunch and if we should go to the hospital. I told him no. Everything was going fine. He could come home at 4 or 6 or whatever it was supposed to be. and we should have plenty of time. So he came home around 6 or 6:30, and at this point he was still having some back issues. He hadn't had his first back surgery yet. Um, he had a herniated disc, and when he had stepped off the bus when they came back from wherever they were, he stepped wrong and it made a little bit of a pop. So he was in a lot of pain. He asked if he could take a hot bath really quick for like a half an hour to soak it. I said, sure, I'm ready to go whenever you're ready to go. And I guess around 7:30 we left, but we stopped at the BX on the way because we didn't have a car seat. We wanted a video camera. Cameras on phones at this time were like 1.5 megapixel. They were ridiculously stupid, and we all know hospitals are poorly lit. I brought the camera. I brought my good camera, and we each had our cell phone cameras. But, oh no, I guess I didn't have my good camera at the time. Anyway, we stopped at the BX. We knew that walking would still be good for me, and as we can do when we were bored, whether it's Walmart or the BX or the Power Zone, which is the military's version of a Best Buy, we could easily waste, a couple hours window shopping. We do that at antique stores now. So anyway, we were there. He ran into one of his sergeants. We were talking. We were trying to compare models of video cameras. Next thing you know, it's like 9 o'clock. My contractions at this point were probably 2 to 3 minutes, easily 2 to 3 minutes apart. And I told him we needed to get going. So we finally get going, get to the hospital. As we're pulling in the parking lot, I call my mom, and I'm about 3 weeks early, 2 to 3 weeks early, and she says, oh, it's probably nothing. They're probably going to send you back home. You can't be serious. You're not having the baby this early. And I was like, well, let's just call and let you know. And she's like, okay. So we get to the hospital, and I get upstairs, and we're getting checked in. I'm filling out paperwork. At this point, they're pretty close together. I'm holding my belly. I'm kind of rocking back and forth. I'm trying to sign things at the desk. And all of a sudden, at one point, I felt like two hands had wrapped around me, and all of a sudden, just pain, all at once, this big contraction. That's what I thought it was. And I thought maybe I was just finally getting, second stage. Hard labor was kicking in. I had timed it right. I was proud of myself. Laughed it off. They got us back into the, one little gurney areas with the curtain. They were getting the monitor hooked up after I'd gotten in a gown. And they put the contraction one on to the thing, and then they went to put the heartbeat one on. And she couldn't find it at first, which to most people would be alarming right away, but it seemed like every single appointment I went to, whether it was the ones way in the beginning or the ones towards the end, my doctor and I started to make it a joke, a running gag, that she would always hide. It always took at least 15 to 30 seconds to find her. She'd play hide and seek. So when they couldn't find it the first, a minute or so, I said, well, she's playing hide and seek again. And then the Doppler kept making funny noises. The nurse was trying to mess with it. And she's like, you know what? I think the batteries might be going out in this one. Let me go get another one or something. I wasn't really worried. They went to get another one. And they were having to use the Doppler because just with the disc, they were trying to figure out where to place it to catch the heartbeat for the monitor, for the contraction machine. And so anyway, she went to get the other one, and she thought she caught a heartbeat for a second, and I happened to be looking at the monitor while she was placing the little disc again, and for just a second, a 47 flashed up on the screen. I'll never forget that number. And so she stopped to listen for a second. She's like, oh no, that's too slow. That can't be hers. That must be yours. And she moved somewhere else. even if it were mine, 47 is ridiculously low, but I mean, it could have just been a number that flashed up on the screen. And she still never, she finally said she had to go get the doctor, and they were going to use the ultrasound machine. It was more precise, because you could actually see the heart beating, you could see the red and the blue colors of the blood flow. And I was laying on my side that created the most blood flow at that time too. He walked in, he wheeled it in, he sat down on the bed, or he was standing next to the bed, and he touched my thigh, and he said, if we find something to the extent of, if it doesn't look good and there is a heartbeat, but it's faint, or it's not as high as it needs to be, or baby's in distress, he said, if we see any flicker of any kind of heartbeat, he said, we're going to rush you into the ER, into the operating room, to do a C-section so fast. You're not going to know what hit you. And I was like, okay, I'm prepared for that. And he looked around, and I could see the image on the screen, and there was nothing. And he just said, I'm sorry that there's no heartbeat. I don't know if he said those specific words, but there was no heartbeat. At this point, he asked me if I had ever had a C-section before, or all my children were delivered regularly, and I said, yes, they've all been delivered normally. And he said that at that point, he didn't see any reason for them to do a C-section, for me to have to recover from that kind of pain as well, and open me up for infection when I had already started the labor process. Funny enough, within a few hours, it did kind of start to slow down. They had to do some induction techniques. I don't think I ever went as far as Pitocin. They tried the gel and this weird balloon they put up inside me that was, I guess, supposed to mimic. I don't know. I don't remember. So, they got me into my room. At this point, the boys had come with me, the kids had come with me, and they were still waiting in the waiting room. It had probably been half an hour or 45 minutes at this point. So, the very first thing I did was call my mom and tell her. And she made the sound I'll never forget. Something between some sort of primal moan and a cry. And I don't know how long the phone call lasted. It wasn't very long. And they brought the boys in, and the smiles on their faces because they were ready to come in and go through this process with me and meet their sister. And I had to tell them. It wasn't going to be that way, and I had to tell them what had happened, and that she wasn't no longer here, alive. So, I'm sorry. This is the longest. I've told this story a million times, but I don't think I've cried in quite a few months. And it catches up with you. That's my theory. If you don't break down every once in a while, it just gets all bottled up. Anyway, so I went through the next probably 12 hours or so of labor. The one thing my mom, she said, I remember her saying on the phone that she couldn't understand is why they were going to make me go through that. Why would they make me go through labor and make me deliver her instead of just taking her? And I tried to explain it to her. She went to nursing school. So yeah, there's always that. In the back of your mind, you're always hoping that they're wrong. There's like that 1% of you that wants to not believe what they said is true, even though you saw it on the monitor yourself. You think that maybe when she's born, she'll cry and everything will be okay. But that's not the way it happened. One of the kids did record the birth because we had already planned on doing that anyway, and we stopped to get a video camera. I've only watched that once. Maybe at some point I'll be able to watch it again. But the times that I've had to type out this story or send it to people in my support group online, I always say that the loudest sound in the room was the silence, is the silence of a stillborn. Because there's nothing. So the doctor laid her on me, and she was pink, and I'm pretty sure I've shared pictures here before, but for anyone that might be watching this only for the first time or watching me for the first time, because I saw the title, I might just put a small montage at the end. I think I made a video for her right after she was born, but I'm pretty sure there's music in it and it would be copyrighted. But anyway, she wasn't like other babies I had seen in other photos, and I only know that because on the TTC board there was a mom who just 6 months before had had a stillborn, and since then I have taken photos and volunteered, as other people on this channel know, to take pictures for other people's babies. And her lips were still pink and her skin was still pink. I do believe at this point, even though there hasn't been no one said anything, I think that when I was checking in, I think that either I had an abruption or something happened, and I do think that that heartbeat that I saw on the monitor was hers. I do believe that from that point until the ultrasound, I think that we were losing her that whole time. We ended up not having an autopsy done. They did check the placenta and the umbilical cord. Final cause of death was umbilical vein thrombosis, which is blood clot in the cord. There were small clots on the placenta, and I remember the nurse saying when she broke my water to help keep the contractions going. I remember she made mention that there wasn't as much amniotic fluid as there should have been. It seemed like there was only about half. I don't know what that means. I did have kind of a late ultrasound, but I don't think I had one as late as I should have. I don't know if there was anything that could have been done in that respect. I had one at 20 weeks to find out she was a girl, and because I had my appendix taken out, and then I had one around 24 to 26, but I didn't have one any later than that. So anyway, we spent, I don't know, I guess about 4 hours or so with her. I wish it had been longer. Jason couldn't handle the physicality of her. I guess not that it's made these last 11 years any better, but he just couldn't deal. So when he drove the kids home, he asked if I could finish up my time with her, which I don't resent him for. I understood where he was coming from, and we had, to some respects, it seemed like we had quite a bit of time with her, which in reality it wasn't much at all. He did hold her. I held her for the first hour or so after she was born, and then they took her. My youngest went with the nurse and bathed her and changed her clothes, and then they handed her to Jason. I have a picture of that. He doesn't like it to be shown, but it's one of my favorites. It's very, very emotional. I'll pop it in here really quick. He hadn't cried since I met him. He hadn't cried. His dad had raised him to be a man and not cry. So he cried for a long time. He cried for about a week. He hasn't really since, but yeah. Anyway, not quite sure what else there is to say. We took a lot of pictures. I've got a folder, an album over there, which I did in my cabinet video, which I'll link up here, in her memorial cabinet. It probably took about 100 altogether between my phone, his phone, and the nurse. They have little disposable cameras that are in the angel boxes, and the nurses will take photos if the family doesn't. This was before Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep started coming to the hospital. Yeah, but anyway, we have a lot of photos. I made sure to get her footprints done at least 3 times on a couple of note cards, once in the baby book straight from the ink. I got both of her hands done. This is how I got this tattoo done. These are life size. I didn't want to resize them in Photoshop at all. It says her name, her date of birth. I wanted to place them so that they would fit true to size. And for anyone else, like I said, that hasn't watched my videos before, this is a sound wave tattoo. And it has a her fetal heartbeat. The one and only time I was thoughtful enough to take my phone in and record when the nurse did that check, and that's what this is. I'll link that video here too. It's my latest tattoo, and I absolutely adore it. Got it right before we went on her vacation, birthday vacation this year. So anyway, the only thing I regret is not getting any lock of her hair and keeping her umbilical cord, which I know probably sounds weird to people that haven't had a loss. I'm hoping that mostly people that can relate is watching this video. Any rude comments will be deleted and not replied to at all. I will keep the comments on, but I'm going to monitor them. So yeah, that's that. She was born August 15th, 2008. She, like I said, would have been 11 this summer. Probably close to starting middle school, I guess. So yeah, so far the hardest, the first year or so was the hardest. It's mostly a blur to me. I did pump breast milk for 9 months and donated. I'll leave a link down there for the organization I used. It started out as a Yahoo group and then switched to a larger forum. If anyone does want to donate breast milk, don't donate it to milk banks. They heat it up, they pasteurize it, they kill what's good in it, about it, and then some are known, just like with Locks of Love, and then they sell it back to hospitals. And that's just not fair. So with Milkshare, you basically I posted that I was a lost mom and that I had milk I was producing. It wasn't much, but I wanted to share it with someone else. And
the battery is low. Please charge in time. Goodbye.
I got a handful of comments and replies. I did end up matching with one woman in Florida. Her name was Victoria. She had a baby boy. His name was True, and I think he was 6 weeks old at the time. She had had a breast reduction when she was 19, and so she wasn't producing as much milk as she could have, or she should have. So the fact that I could only make, in my early days, that I was lucky to get 4 ounces a day or so. When I started taking supplements and things like that, I think my biggest day was like 12 ounces, but I was making enough just to supplement, and all she needed was supplementation. So I did that, like I said, for 9 months. I tried to wean myself in February. That didn't work. I don't think I was ready to let go. And even in March, when I finally did, of 2009, I still wasn't quite ready, but I knew that I had to. I was thinking possibly about getting back to work, but that didn't happen for a while. And the schedule of pumping was just, I don't know, it took over everything, because if I didn't pump on time, I wouldn't keep producing. Anyway, I've gotten away from the original stillbirth video story, but I mean, I guess this is as good a place as any to talk about the whole thing, the whole process. I'll link another video up here again for anyone who hasn't watched. I've had a couple breast milk pendants made, and I have one video where I went through the whole process of getting some of the milk out that I had to send to the jewelry maker, along with some of her ashes. That's yeah, that's another emotional video. But anyway, I guess that's it for that. Technically, it is October, but I'm not going to consider it a vlogoween video. I was supposed to record one yesterday, and it rained all day. I might get done this weekend. In fact, it might be up before this one is. I'm not sure. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you were here this long, I apologize. I didn't really mean to ramble on so long. It did feel good to get it out. I think it needed to be done. And yeah. This whole channel, I'm not trying to get pregnant again. I just turned 50 a couple of weeks ago, so this won't be like other moms on YouTube where I have a stillbirth story and then I'm trying for a rainbow baby. There's no IVF, there's no trying. I'm past that age. She will pretty much be our forever baby in that respect. Oh, and another weird note, since I did go so far back, I did have a miscarriage as well in April of 2012, right after Jason got out of the military. Once I have the money, things are kind of tight right now. Our tourist town is dying, so pizza's not as lucrative as it was. But I think next spring, my next tattoo is going to incorporate miscarriages, the 4 stars from my miscarriages, and it's going to be a lighthouse, and it's a whole big thing. I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah. So I guess like this video. Well, it's hard to like this video, but stick around. Even if you only found me for this, I do some DIY stuff around the house. I stream games sometimes. Right now I'm playing World of Warcraft. It's just me. Just me doing things, vlogging about stuff that nobody cares about. Like, subscribe if you want to, and I hope anyone that's going through this, that it's as raw and new. I just have to say that it will get better. It will get easier. It won't ever go away. Like an analogy I heard in a movie once, some people have used waves on a shore. Some people have used mountains, like climbing a mountain with the hills. The weight of it is like carrying around a brick in your pocket. In the very beginning, you feel the full weight of it all the time. It's always there. But after a while, you get used to it. You get used to the weight of it until one time you bump into something or trip, and the weight of it, you're reminded of the weight of it again. And I thought that was a great analogy. And I think today I definitely bumped it and stumbled and fell down 5 times because I'm definitely feeling the weight of it today. So I will see you in my next video. Like I said, this is October, so a couple vlogoween videos coming up for Halloween. And I'm trying to keep those WoW videos coming as well. Take care of yourself. Take it easy on yourself if you're going through this grief process. And until next time, thanks for watching. Bye.